Hi everyone, I just want to welcome you tonight to our webinar. I'm Kylie Akins and this is Milo Kalamakaridis.
Hi.
And tonight we're going to be talking about an introduction to secure attachment with our child. But before we do, I'd just like to start, if I could, by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and waters throughout Australia and on which we are sitting. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So I'd just like to tell you a little bit about who we are. So we're actually reframing or hosting for Reframing Disability tonight. And Reframing Disability is a non-for-profit organisation that is by and for families of young children with a developmental delay or a disability. And Reframing Disability, we offer workshops, resources, peer support for families so they can build on their skills and their knowledge. And we create the best life for the child that we have for now and into the future. And if you'd like to check out some more information, go and look at our website, which is at reframingdisability.com.au. We'd really love you to check out some of the blog posts that we have there and some of the other webinars we have posted as well. But before we get started, we just have some quick housekeeping. So for question time, which will be at the end, you're welcome to send through a question if you'd like during the session with the Q&A function that we have in tonight's session, or you can also choose to submit anonymously if you'd like. And we're really welcoming discussion tonight in our webinar, so we'd love you to use the chat function if you could, or if you're on Facebook Live, then please just talk in the chat in Facebook Live and we'll try to get to your questions. This will also be published and it's being recorded, so it will be published on the YouTube channel that we have as well. So just very quickly, a little bit about me. I'm a mum of two amazing neurodiverse children. And basically we live the day-to-day life of what it's like to have a child with a disability. Our son is autistic and has an intellectual disability. And we basically understand what that challenge means and all the fun and joy that comes with also the diversity that we live as well. My background is a naturopath and a doula, and I'm a peer facilitator of some very empowering parent and disability-led programs. And I really enjoy supporting families and mentoring families in child-led and evidence-based, strengths-focused approach. And some growth mindset approaches as well. I'd really like to introduce you now to my colleague Mello, who's co-host tonight, and he's also a dad of two. He has a beautiful daughter, Victoria, and she has an intellectual disability. And Mello is also very passionate about helping people in the very best way that they can be. He's particularly interested in assisting fathers to become better parents and a better partner and a better person too. And Mello is a life coach and NLP practitioner. He runs My Time groups for dads, and he facilitates also a big number of parenting programs, including Circle of Security. So I'd just like to, I guess, welcome you all aboard, and we really do value your input. So please, if there's anything you'd like to contact us with, feel free to, and we'll should be sharing at the end of this. So enjoy our session tonight as we do an introduction to secure attachment. So I'm just going to share some slides now with you. Bear with me a moment while I share our slides. Okay. And I'm assuming you can see those slides quite well. Can we see it well, Mello?
Yes, we can. Can I? And thanks so much, Kylie. Before we move on to the next slide, just at the bottom, and I don't know if everyone can pick that up, but I've added a quote from Frederick Douglass, a civil rights activist, and I just love this quote, and it's relevant for all of us as parents. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And I think that really a lot of what we're going to talk about in regards to secure attachment with our children begin in these early years. And yeah, I just love that quote, because if we're not doing one, we'll end up doing the other. So let's see what we can do about building strong children. Thanks, Kylie.
Thanks for bringing point to that quote too, because it's quite small, so it's good that you brought it out to us. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start with our attachment theory slide.
Now, can I just say, as you're switching over to the next slide, so secure attachment, or attachment theory, if you like, it's not a disability specific theory or approach. And whilst I deliver this, and Kylie delivers a number of other programs, I just feel that whilst a lot of the programs, the parenting programs that exist and that are available to us all, may not specifically work with all of our children, the one thing that I do say to parents is that when it comes to parenting programs, you're going to learn something that's going to maybe help you become a better parent. So the way that I view it is that if I'm doing something that's helping me and assisting me to be a better parent to either of my children, then that's a good day. That's a good program. So yeah, I just wanted to make that clear up front. And there certainly isn't a one size fits all, not only within disability, but for all of our children. And the thing about whatever program we do, it's about getting that information and then seeing how it might apply to our children, to our lifestyle, to our situation, and I suppose adjusting it, modifying it, and applying it in a way that's going to best serve our situation, our family, our child. So attachment theory, a brief history, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it at the moment, but the thing about it is it refers back to what you were talking about just a moment ago, Kylie, around a strengths-based approach, or an evidence-based approach more is what I was wanting to say. So there's a lot of research that supports attachment theory. John Bowlby and his work, he first introduced it in his work in the 50s. Then what happened was Mary Ainsworth, who was a student and colleague of his, went on, I think it's through to Uganda and then the States, and the work that she did built on that. And there was a number of other people that had built on that as well. They came together from the work that she was doing, and attachment theory as we know of it today was created. It was created through the introduction of some work that Mary Main, you'll see listed there as well, who was a colleague of Mary Ainsworth's. And yeah, we just wanted to highlight how robust this information is. A lot of the training that I've done has been through the work of Hoffman, Powell and Cooper, through their Circle of Security parenting interventions. And that was, their body of research is been from the 90s. And that Circle of Security program, I think is being delivered in 40 different languages as we speak. So just wanted to make sure that people are aware that it's actually quite a, well, it's been around longer than emotion coaching. And people are familiar with emotion coaching, and obviously you and I spoke about that a month ago, but we just felt that this was really important that we talked about this as well.
So it has very robust, there's lots of evidence. It's robust.
So what is secure attachment? People may be wondering. And we wanted to talk about it because it really is the building blocks to that healthy relationship with others and with ourselves. It's for our children. So at the heart of it all, if I was going to answer this in one question, it would be about relationships. So it's about having secure attachment, having a secure relationship. A healthy parent-child attachment is what we're wanting to achieve. Now, if we drill down that a little bit more, it's more about the healthy child-parent relationship, because they're going to respond to the parenting that we offer, that we engage with and interact with our child. And it is about addressing child needs. Now, we've got written there the oxytocin hormone of bonding. And if we think about attachment and bonding, well, at birth, our child is taken from this secure and safe and nourishing environment and is brought out into this world, this foreign world, and is crying, doesn't know what's going on. And the first thing that the nurse does is they place the baby on the mother, the power of the skin-to-skin contact. And, I perhaps shouldn't even be talking about this, Kylie. As a doula, this is work that you do and know so well, but that calms the child down. And we know that. And
the mother.
And it's that soothing that the child receives, and the whispering and the love that the mother's giving in those moments, that is the beginning of that bonding and that attachment. And that's, and we'll talk more about it in the coming slides, but that concept of the child just feeling secure, safe, and taken care of. And we'll, again, we'll talk about this more in subsequent slides.
And Mel, I'm just going to add to that because secure attachment is about that bond, that oxytocin bond. And it's interesting, it's in our chemicals, it's in the brain, our neurochemicals, it's in our brain, it's in our anatomy. And at birth, we have the highest amount of oxytocin we ever have. So as humans, it's highest when we're born and we bond to our parent, our mother and our father who's there. And then we also, when we're birthing, is when we have a very, very high level of oxytocin. But dads get that surge of oxytocin too because of that close bond and because of the connection that they share with the birthing mother. So it's quite an amazing hormone. And there are other hormones, of course, involved in the bonding and the feel good, but it's essential for that connection that I think you made. So, yeah. I'll move on to...
And before we move on to the other one, I suppose the other thing around that, the oxytocin, is if there isn't secure attachment, then what we may be experiencing, or what the child may be experiencing, and actually us as well, because if we're not responding, maybe something's triggered in us, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But so what's happening to the child? Well, the child may be releasing cortisol. And that is the stress hormone, and that's what we don't want to be doing. That's not nurturing. That's not a feel-good, safe feeling that the child's...
Absolutely, Melo. And we don't want that in the birthing space. We don't want cortisol and adrenaline in the birthing space. And that's a whole doula talk that we could do another time. So you'll get the doula talking in a minute. So I'll move on to why secure attachment's important.
Strong.
And I guess the reason why we really want to share why secure attachment is important, because it does benefit us and the child, because it's that parent-child relationship. So we know that this is actually framing the whole beliefs that we have as people. We're framing our child's belief and their own self-worth. So from that first bonding connection with the oxytocin bond that we have, we're starting to build that child's whole world around them, that they're important to us, that they matter, that we belong with each other, that belonging to one another. And that builds in us as their parent, and it gets stronger over time. And the child needs to feel secure enough so that they're confident then to go out and start exploring. So, we lay them on their little backs, and then they have tummy time. And then all of a sudden they start noticing everything around them. You see that point where our child starts to notice the world around them. And then they just want to reach out for things, but they're always checking back in at us. They're always looking back and making sure. And then they start to crawl. We have a lot of fun with that as they start to crawl around, and they start to really explore the world, but they're always checking back. Where's mummy? Where's daddy? Who's here with me? Where's my care provider? And then I guess it's, as they get a little bit older, it's helping a child to accept and manage their emotional experience with the world, and being able to regulate themselves, and they're coming back in for co-regulation with us. So that attachment helps our child to understand their emotions. And we talk a lot about that with our emotion coaching webinar that we did. And then, it's that ability for our child to strengthen their social network. So they start to interact with others. It's just not mum and dad anymore, and of course siblings. It becomes the other people, the peers and the aunties and uncles, and of course the beautiful grandparents in their life. And they build these stable, positive relationships with others because of that secure attachment. And it really starts to build. So, and then they too, the positive relationships that come into their life, and then they get to build those relationships. I'm going to share a little video with everybody now that Mel and I have chose. It kind of sums it all up in one great little video. So I'll just share that now. Just bear with me and make sure.
While you're looking for that concept of building positive relationships into the future, what happens is that our childhood experiences are going to echo into our parenting. And this is something that the research is saying. And there's a lot of research now that talks about attachment and the attachment styles that people have within their relationships. But that's why it's so important that we get it right when we can, where we can, so they can have those healthier relationships also.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Melo. It's exactly it. Okay, I'll just play a very short video. It just goes for a couple of minutes. I'll play that now.
We all remember feeling a sense of separation anxiety when we were kids. Whether it would be your parents dropping you off at school or having your favorite stuffed animal taken away from you, we only got a sense of relief when the person or thing that was taken away is brought back. This is the beginning of attachment theory. The separation anxiety can continue into adulthood, like when you get anxious about having your cell phone taken away. But why do humans behave like this? Psychologists have labeled the reason behind these early childhood anxieties as attachment, and have explored human connection through parent-child bonding. Daniel Goleman states that attachment provides the glue that keeps not just a couple, but a family together, and caregiving adds the impulse to look after offspring, so our children can grow up to have their own. The early stages of childhood are the most crucial in development. This time in a child's life is when they have experiences that shape how we relate to other people. Having a healthy relationship with the child's parents is key in this development. It is hard in some families, though, for the child to get a sense of attachment to their mother. There are a few reasons for this. Sometimes the mother has postpartum depression and withdraws from the baby, or there's a lack of resources that makes the family less ready to focus on building an attachment. A study done by Mary Ainsworth called Strange Situation, in which she put a parent and a child between the ages of 9 to 18 months in a room. She would then bring in a stranger. While the child was preoccupied with the stranger, the parent would leave. Afterwards, the child would react to the missing parent and said parent would come back. Ainsworth pegged 3 types of attachment: secure, anxious avoidant attachment, and anxious ambivalent attachment. A 4th type of attachment was introduced later on by Ainsworth's colleague, Mary Main. She brought in the disorganized, disoriented attachment. This is when a child avoids their parent or caregiver, but is also clingy. When the parent or caregiver leaves and comes back, the child looks dazed and disoriented. Our attachment style with what our parents or caregivers growing up plays a huge role in how we live our lives today. What do you think your attachment style is? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel.
Okay, so we're going to now talk about those attachment styles. So I'm going to leave that to you, Melo, to talk about the 4 different attachment styles.
Yeah, okay, so we're here to focus on secure attachment, but we obviously need to touch on the 4 different styles. And what happened initially, as was in the video, and as I mentioned at the beginning, there were the 3 secure, anxious, and avoidant. And disorganized came later as Mary was exploring into teenagers and then adults, and discovered the disorganized. So avoidant is about where the child may be distant and they're actually masking their distress. So they're not, it's not so visible to us. But they become self-reliant. They may be choosing to play alone. They may be showing less emotion, and they're not trusting in others. The anxious is the can feel clingy, they can feel needed or needy, I should say, and they don't feel safe to explore the world. They're easily triggered. They can get upset quite easily. They can even get quite angry, and they may always be looking to seek the approval of others. Now, the disorganized parent wants to control the child and not necessarily give it comfort. It doesn't really respond to the child's need for security, and that's what makes the child confused. It doesn't know whether to come close. It doesn't know to stay back, and as a result can often be withdrawn, disassociating from events, and showing real elements of fear, and a lot of that is because often in a disorganized attachment, we're talking about a parent that has unresolved trauma themselves. But the secure attachment, which is what we're hoping for and working towards, is around an element of dependability, reliability, and consistent in the relationship that the child can see and experience with the parent. So the child in those examples, or in that experiment that Ainsworth has done, and also in the work from Circle of Security, the child would still get upset when the parent left the room, but then the child would be happy when the parent returned, as the parent would also be happy and would welcome the child. So it was a reciprocal feeling, because often in those situations, in the avoidant and anxious, that was not being displayed. There was that anger, or there was that going up to the parent, but turning away from instead of turning towards. So it's about being tuned in to the emotional needs of our children, and being present with them in the time of those that need.
Thanks, Mello. So I think what we really want to do now is really talk about the vital role that we can have and the strategies that we can really use to have that secure attachment together. So I think it's important to understand that there are 4 different styles, but what we want you to know is that to be a good enough parent, you can be giving your child a secure bond, a secure attachment around 30% of the time. Then your child's going to have that feeling of security and being securely attached. There are going to be moments, obviously, where we can't always be getting it that way. We're going to have things that are going to trigger us, and we'll talk about those triggers later. But our role really is to create as secure a bond as possible. And of course, we will do it more than 30% of the time. And that would be our goal. But to make sure that our child is feeling growing in a secure, developed way, we need it to be around 30%. So as parents, we need to make... Yeah, go, Mello.
No. Oh, sorry. When I first did the program, before I got certified to deliver it, and I remember sitting there thinking 30% of the time, like 30% is nothing. I'm going to do it 70%. I'm going to do it 80%. But what's the reassuring thing about that is the research says, the data shows us that if you are offering secure attachment 30% of the time, you're going to have a positive impact on the relationship with your child, on their relationship with you. And that's what's most encouraging. You know, there's often this guilt that we have as parents that we're not doing enough. We should be doing more. I'm not doing it well. You know, what does even good enough mean? Yeah, so 30% of the time, it just sort of makes you think, I can that, and we can. The beautiful thing about secure attachment is this is what the child is wanting, and this is what parents are wanting to give also, and that's the wonderful part about this. So understanding a few of the steps that we can do to help make that happen is a wonderful thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you, Miller. It's a really good point, what you bring up. So thank you. And I guess the other one is us being present with our child, being with our child. You know, our child's going to come to us with big feelings, big emotion, big ideas. They're going to come and scream for us at times, or they're just going to need us. And it's about us being able to be with them in that place and be comfortable with that feeling of being uncomfortable. You know, sometimes we don't want to stay away from that, but it's about, you know, as Mela said, 30% of the time, if we can just be present and be there with them and make them feel reassured by us, and also being aware that that's what our child's coming in for, wanting that connection with us. And responding to our child's cues and our child's needs, but not just their physical needs, their needs for us to give them good health and nutrition and support, but also their emotional need, because they're going to come in and they're going to need that regulation, that emotional regulation. And we talk about that again in our webinar on emotion coaching, but it's being able to meet them where they're at and sit with it, to not feel like we need to close it up or shut it down. And we're not always going to have time for that. We're going to have times where we're going to be a bit dismissive and avoidant of that. And there'll be times where we've got our own triggers and our own anxieties going on, but it's being able to do it, you know, most of the time if we can, and meet them where their needs are at and respond to their needs. Be quick to respond as well, not just, you know, when they're tiny little babies, we're very quick to respond to them. But as they get older, they start to learn to respond to their own needs as well. And I guess making sure that we are dependable. You know, our children need us to be reliable, but consistently reliable, not just reliable sometimes here or there. A secure attachment is around a parent that can be consistently reliable most of the time, that the child knows that mum or dad leave me, they are going to come back. I know they'll come back. If mum and dad, you know, if I need something, they're going to give it to me. They're not going to withhold the things I really need. So we become dependable. We become their rock. We've got their back. You know, a child knows, I've got you, honey. No matter what's going on, I'm there for you. You know, there'll be times when our child are very emotionally disrupted. There'll be times when they just want to take, you know, chuck a tantrum and take it out on the world, but we still have got them. We're still holding that space for them. And we want to model it back to them. So we want them to see that it's our action. We're not squatting away from discomfort all the time, and we're not ignoring them, or we're not turning our back when they come in for that connection. We're actually staying there for them. You know, I watched a beautiful video of a dad whose little girl was having a massive, terrible tantrum, I'm sure. And the dad just sat on the ground, and she really was struggling. You could see that little girl was struggling, and he just sat on the ground next to her, and he just patiently waited. And she was bright red and sweaty, and she was really worked up. And Dad just kept waiting patiently, and then you could see her, she was starting to really give in to her emotions and really start to wind them down a little bit. She came in and she leant into her dad, and he was there for that big hug. And I'm sure that was a very patient dad. He waited a long time for her to have that emotional release, but it was just a beautiful thing to watch. And obviously, you know, mama had videoed it or something, because you could tell the dad had no idea he was being videoed, but it was a really wonderful modeled example of how sometimes our kids really need us to just stay there and be that secure base that they need us to be. I guess that last point, connection, not attention, you know, our kids are going to come to us, and sometimes we'll say, oh, they just want our attention. Yeah, they want connection. They're coming in for that connection, and then maybe we'll get to an age where they're not always going to come in for connection, and we're going to really want them to. So if we realize that when they're coming back to us, we're that safe space, that secure base, and that safe space. I think Mary Ainsworth talks about the safe haven we are to our child in the circle of security. So they're coming in for connection with us, and yes, their behaviour may not be appropriate, and this is the time where we're the adult, so we can model to them the behaviour that we want to see, or we can talk to them about what's going on when they've calmed down. We talk about them in emotion coaching, you know, that we can help them understand their big feelings, and then it's a chance to talk to and communicate with them. But if we see the vital role we have as a parent to recognise it as connection and not just the attention-seeking behaviour, that they're actually crying out they need something from us. And sometimes, you know, that what they need from us, they don't need a lot. It might only take us a minute or two to give them that connection. But we might be thinking, oh, but I've got all this stuff I've got to do. You know, we've got a massive checklist in our head, don't we, Bella?
But you know, Kylie, I think that there's a couple of points there that I want to touch on, because that, like you say, it might not be much that they need from us, but if we're not, as you said earlier, if we're not being with, or if we're not being present, so if we're not being aware, then slowly that small request does escalate. Now, one of the things that I say in the parenting programs, if you can walk away reframing that comment of, you know, my son or daughter is only, you know, leave her alone, she just wants some attention. If you can reframe that into thinking, no, my child's not after attention, my child is seeking connection, all of a sudden your heart changes. I go into that engagement when I realize my child is needing connection. I am then, what can I do to help my child? Instead of, you know, you want my attention, you've taken me away from something because you want something. It's not, no, they need connection. And if you can reframe that, if you can reframe your child, and well, the other thing around that I just remembered is your child is not seeking attention, they are seeking connection. However, in the absence of connection, they'll settle for attention. And so that being aware is going to play a really big part of that. Even responding to child's cues. I had this morning, I was taking Victoria to physio. So we were in the car together, and she was really sweetly, and Victoria's got intellectual disability, so her communication, whilst it's improving, isn't great. But we're interacting, and she was asking questions. But where was I? I wanted to listen to the radio, and I'm like, shh, hang on. And she was asking, so I wasn't responding to Victoria's cues and needs. And fortunately, I was able to catch myself in that moment and think, you know, what are you doing? And I turned off the radio. Then we started talking. I shared with you earlier today, we started singing songs together, and I videoed her and I, and then we went to a beautiful, you know, 10 minutes interacting, because I woke up. I woke up and I realized that I realized what her cues were, what her need was, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, and Melo, you did share that video with me today, so thank you for that. It was just gorgeous watching. As I was saying, you could do your own carpool karaoke.
Well, look, we have fun, and that's what it's about. It's, you know, with me, and I hope it's the case with the parents that are listening. You know, I've gotten to that point where with Victoria, especially when we're at home, you know, that dance like no one's watching, sing like no one's, you know, we just let it out. We just go for it, and we have fun, and we're connecting. And those moments, I'll just, you know, I'll take those moments as often as they can come around. They're just beautiful.
They are beautiful. I'm just going to talk about triggers now.
Yeah.
So us as parents are triggers. And I think this is, it's really important that we start to understand what our triggers are. And in circle security, without giving too much away, I know they talk about it being a bit of shark music there, but having an awareness of what actually gets us to the point where we start to flip our lid. When we think about that Dan Siegel hand model of flipping the frontal cortex. So there's the emotional part and there's our frontal cortex, the thinking brain, then we flip our lids. What is it that triggers us as parents? And I know what can trigger me will not trigger my husband. And what triggers him, I think, oh, what's going on? What did that trigger you? So we have different triggers to each other. It's important to understand that there'll be times where we're incredibly busy. We've got all our tabs open in our brain, which, like I had today with talking to Mello. We'll have other times where we haven't eaten. We've gone half the day without eating or even going to the toilet. Like, how often does a parent not get to go to the toilet? And we think we're really, our bucket's already overwhelmed, and then we've got to give again. So there'll be, what are our triggers? Be aware, try and be aware of those triggers, and obviously late at night, everyone's tired. So there's going to be a heightened level of triggers when you're hungry, when you're feeling lonely and sad, and obviously at night when you're very tired, or if you've just had lots of sleepless nights because no one's sleeping very well in your home. So they're going to be triggers. And we need to really also think about the next point, which is acknowledging and have a look at and acknowledge how we were parented, the style that we were parented. This is not to judge. There's no judgment here. It's just an awareness. Like, how were we parented? What were our parents doing? It was a different era, a different decade, just like it is right now for us. We're parenting very differently to what our parents and grandparents were parenting. So being respectful, every generation has a different parenting style that's happening. But just be aware of those 4 attachment styles when you think about how you were parented. And we also want to think about how the different attachment styles affect our relationships parent to parent. Like, how is that affecting us in our relationship with our partner? And then the style of parenting we're going to do with our child because of our own attachment style. And we're all working towards secure attachment with our child together, but we're also going to have our other triggers. So just be aware of that underlying. And then, of course, we have the external stressors, and we have, what's going on in our immediate environment, and then the greater environment. And of course, we're all under this external stressor at the moment with COVID. And that's worldwide. So no matter where we are, we can't escape that one. So just being aware that some people are handling it really, really well. They're doing better than others, and other people, I've even heard people saying the silver linings, but then there are other people that are finding it's triggering their internal alarm system, and they're feeling like everything's triggering them, and they're rushing out in the toilet paper or whatever else it is. Right now we're talking about masks and everything. So just being aware of what are our external stresses and our external triggers going on. And
sorry, go on.
I was going to say with the last point, the last quote that we've actually got there, just wanting to say that, when we think about, as a parent, not having enough time, or, I'm always rushed and I'm always doing, and, the kids are always needing, or whatever it is, we need to think about that. You're either going to spend time connecting with your child, or you're going to spend the time repairing the rupture you've made with your child. But either way, we're going to be spending the time. And I just think about times when I've rushed my children, like in the morning, come on, hurry up, I've rushed them, and I've pushed my children a little bit too far, both of them being neurodiverse. I've learned some things can't be pushed. And then I've ruptured that beautiful connection that we were having. Or I might be doing my daughter's hair in the morning, and she likes it a particular way with her sensory stuff. It has to be a certain way done. And I'll just get to that point where I'm feeling flustered inside of me, and I'll just push a little bit too much. And then doesn't matter if we've got to be somewhere on time. Once a child's not regulated and we've ruptured that. So I think it's really important that we think about that. And I think about that all the time. I can either be spending time connecting and enjoying my time with my children, or I can be spending time doing the other. So, and I know you'll talk a bit more of that in the next slide.
But can I just say this slide around triggers for parents, and this is really at the heart of secure attachment is the way that we are going to respond. So if the challenge is in our children's behavior, the solution is only going to reside in our behavior. The way that we interact in that moment is going to influence the direction of the subsequent moment. And so this having an awareness of what's flipping our lid, understanding that we're parenting because of the way we were parented. And this is not about going home and, picking up the phone and ringing up your parents and saying, I'm yelling at my kids because of the way that you did parent. It's not about that at all. And, I think what we need to accept is our parents did the best that they could with what they had. And we can only hope that that was the case, but we're in this moment. And I think that when we know that there's, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We know that there's things that are working. We might need to modify them to try and fit in with our lives. And for the parents that are here, just like you and I, Kylie, not everything's going to work with our kids. Kids with additional needs have got additional layers of complexity. But that doesn't stop us from trying something and trying it differently, and trying to get to somewhere that's going to help them in some way. And that's what we need to look at. And we will, as you say, explore that. But
will I share about some strategies now? Will we talk about strategies?
Yeah, let's do that. Sorry. And there's a question from Michelle, and we'll get to that actually, Michelle. I just wanted to point out. So strategies, of course. So this concept of being your child's safe space. It was Mary Ainsworth that talked about the secure base. In Circle of Security, they talk about the two hands. And there's the top of the circle and the bottom of the circle, and the secure base will allow our child to explore, and then the other hand, the hands of the circle, which is the parent or the caregiver, is the safe haven where you'll also welcome your child back. And so being your child's safe space where they know that you're there. You mentioned, I've got your back. That's where our children need to know that we're going to be there for them, that we're going to meet their needs. And in Circle of Security, they talk about wherever possible, follow your child's needs, but wherever necessary, you need to take charge. So it's not about just everything that our children want, but that being with allows them to know that we're there. That next point about listening and validating their feelings. It's not about dismissing their feelings and being an avoidant type of a parent. It's about acknowledgement. One of the things that we need to understand is acknowledgement is not accepting the situation. It's acknowledging that's how they may feel about it. So listen and validate their feelings is really, really important, because you're saying that you're valuing what they're telling you. We can then get them to shift by asking them questions and get them. We need to be curious and activate more curiosity in them as well. And it's about keep turning up, even when we are uncomfortable. And the keep turning up is something that, I think as a parent of a child with a disability or delay, we probably know this more than most parents. There are times where, we just have to, with Victoria in particular, we'll do the same thing again and again and again and again. And we're just hoping that tipping point of understanding comes. And it doesn't always come when we'd like it to come, or sometimes it may not come. But the fact that we keep turning up and we show that, we're valuing them. And for them to be able to understand that is is what's important, because, you know, when a parent's there, when mum's there or dad's there and saying, I'm here because you're worth it, that's what the message is delivering. The child has got nowhere else to go with their thinking other than, you're here because I deserve it, or because I'm worth it. And that's what we want. That's where the secure attachment sweet spot is, where at the consistency of us being there with them. And the greatest present, I say this again and again, the greatest present we can give our children is our presence. And that means really being in that moment with them. Not just spending time with them, but being in their present and listening. So turning up, validating, being the safe haven, being the secure base, it's very, very important. Self-care here, you know, this is a really important one. You know, we talk about it again and again, because there's a lot of parents that have this concept of guilt that they're not doing enough, or I haven't got time to do something for myself because I have to do it for my child. Well, you know what? We're not going to argue that our children need a lot of attention and a lot of support, but one thing that we need to understand is to give our best of ourselves to our children. We have to be at our best. So self-care has to become part of what we do in order to take care of our children. So again, if we reframe self-care as, I'm doing this so I can keep giving to my child, is the way to really look at some time to yourself, whether it's a walk, whether it's yoga, whatever it is that fills your cup. Yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna add in, you know, the other thing with self-care that we forget is our children are always watching us, and if we're not filling our own parent cup and giving to ourselves, our children are watching us and they're seeing us look after our own self-worth. We're worth it. We're worth looking after. You know, we want to model that to our child. We want to show our child that I'm worth it, just like you're worth it, sweetheart. Mum and dad look after you, but you know what? Mum and dad have to look after themselves as well. So we're modeling it to our kids too.
Well, what a great segue to the next point around modeling secure parent-to-parent attachment. So when they see us having a secure relationship, that's important also. Very, very important for them to see mum and dad, or, you know, mum and mum, or dad and dad, whatever the dynamic of the relationship may be, that they're having a secure attachment. And the single parent, the beauty about secure attachment is that it's a dyad. It's about a child. It's between two people. So a child will seek secure attachment with at least one caregiver, at least one. So if there's one caregiver can give the secure attachment a child needs. So that I just wanted to make that point also. The next point, rupture and repair. This is really, really important because, you know, we talk about 30% of the time, if we do things 30% of the time, we're going to have a positive impact on the relationship and the self-esteem of our children. And I'm talking about doing 30% of the time, increasing it by 30% of the time to what you're currently doing. So, you know, you don't have to be the perfect parent, which, yeah, get rid of that out of your vocabulary, because I don't know what that even means. But a good enough parent, and they talk about that. What's a good enough parent? Well, a good enough parent is someone that turns up to workshops and looks at programs and tries to work out what they can do to support their child. But what I've added to that when I talk to parents these days is don't just be an information gatherer. You need to apply. Like if you go somewhere and you learn something, if you're in a workshop and if you're in doing something and you're nodding your head and you're feeling that the information that's being shared is positive and is something that you could do, then apply it, do it. Don't just be an information gatherer. Knowledge is not power. You need to make make it powerful. But rupture and repair, it's so things are going to happen. We're not going to give the secure attachment at different times that our child needs, or they may not be happy where we're taking charge. So, you know, if we need to go to an appointment or if it's bedtime, you know, there's rules and there's consequences. So there will be ruptures. What's important is the repair. Now, a healthy relationship, and we need to be clear about this also, a healthy relationship is not about avoiding ruptures. A healthy relationship is about promoting or showing our children that they know that we'll get past this, we'll get through this, we'll get over this, we can solve this, there is an answer. That's what resilience is. And in relationships also, you know, in adult relationships, to think that, you know, a relationship's one that doesn't have arguments is just crazy. The quality, I could go into that when I met Angela and what I said to her, and she thought I was crazy. But the quality of our relationships based on how we get through the conflict. And so we need to make sure we can't let our child go to bed, or we can't let our child go away attaching whatever thought or association that they made and allow that to stick. We can't. We need to repair. So repair is really, really important. So when there's a rupture, make sure at some point, it doesn't need to happen straight away, but I would say that day, go to repair as well.
Mello, I'm just thinking,
I
you know,
add something. Yep.
I'm just thinking, you know, parents, when we first get a diagnosis of our child, or when we have an unexpected outcome, we have medical conditions that happen with our children. I know myself, I had postnatal depression and anxiety twice, but that was an unexpected outcome as well. There are times when we're going to be stuck in overwhelm, and we're just going to be completely overwhelmed, and it's not going to bring out our best. We're not going to be working at our best, you know. And it's great to know. It was great for me to know that 30% of the time I'm being a secure base and safe haven for my child, and being a good enough parent. And as you talked about the guilt and that, but I think understanding that there are going to be many, many times where parents are going to be overwhelmed, and we're going to be triggered, we're going to be exhausted, and there's going to be rupture, whether it's rupture in our relationship with our partners or rupture in with the other siblings as well. You know, the siblings are going to have times where they're rupturing it because we have siblings with jealousy. There are siblings that, you know, our children that don't have a disability, they become young carers, and there's more pressure on those children. So there's going to be many times where there's rupture, and understanding that this is about the secure base that we make for our child to be able to come back to, so that they feel safe and secure. And we're not saying that this is going to answer every single problem, but it's going to, over time, as they develop and grow, they're going to know that even though this stuff's going on, I'm still loved, I'm still worthy of love, I'm still wanted, I belong, I'm important. You know, and those important messages that we give to our child. And I think about, you know, when I think about the time that my daughter, she went through me having postnatal depression when she was a baby, and then when her brother was a baby. And I think about the times I'm sure I ruptured that relationship with her. And then she had a little brother with additional needs, we had big medical needs when he was a baby. It was very stressful. And I think about the times that I just ruptured the relationship with my husband as well. But I remember always thinking, my mum told me, never go to bed on an argument. And, you know, it was such a good piece of advice from her, because, as you said, if we don't get a chance to repair, or at least acknowledge that mummy had really big feelings today, sweetheart, and I'm sorry I yelled, and I'm sorry I scared you. But that's that's safe haven, that's the secure base, being able to say that as a parent, you know?
Yeah, and look, I certainly hope this is not easy. You know, it's simple because the steps, if there's an argument, make sure you address it, is what the repair is about. But they're not easy. And you know, you just mentioned, don't go to bed not having resolved an argument. I make sure now, because especially with my 10-year-old son who's neurotypical, I make sure that I don't say, I don't give him any consequences for the day or what he might do at night time, because it'll take too long to repair, because he'll just get too emotional. But do you know what I do want to say is it's part of life, rupture. And it's, you know, if you mentioned silver linings before, the silver lining in this is that it's part of resilience building. It's part of, like I said before, when our children can learn that there are answers to problems, that we can work them out, that we get to the point where they start to believe that they can work them out. Now, again, this isn't going to work for all children, and it probably won't work for my daughter. But the concept is one that the research supports. Now, the other thing around that is the next point. So, time out parent, and this is one that sort of freaked me out in a way, because I just didn't really get it, and then I really got it, because when I freak out, so sometimes when I feel myself, getting angry, and I realize I need to take myself out of that situation. Now, for sometimes it may not be, you can't just leave. Maybe it just depends. Maybe you can if you've got a partner at home. But and it's hard to even catch yourself in the eye of the storm sometimes. But if you can, what I do is I just go to the kitchen, get a glass of water. By the time that I've done that, I've calmed myself down. I've realized that it's I'm being perhaps a bit over the top. I'm fortunate Angela did Circle of Security first, and then she told me that it was a great program, you should do it as well. I did it. So now we use the word costs, which is a word that doesn't mean anything. Our children don't associate, it's not like calm down or show some love, or, which is what we used to say at the beginning if either of us was losing it. So the concept of a timeout for a parent to take a breath, to calm down. We're the adult, we're the ones, and in Circle of Security, they talk about being bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. Yes, so the timeout is really, really important. And then the next point around the time in. So imagine the concept of your child is doing something that you might not approve of, and they may be struggling with their emotions, and you send them to their room. It's like, go to your room and think about what you did wrong. Well, how are they going to think about what they did wrong? They couldn't understand, and that's why they had the meltdown. So the time in brings them closer to you. It brings that connection. So there's some of the strategies around secure attachment. Where you and I, we're not therapists. This is, we're talking about a program that is being delivered, being created, designed by experts. We're trained to deliver these programs. But there's, being the safe haven, the secure base, being present and listening, being consistent and showing them that you value them, that I'm here for you. Giving them, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those hierarchy of needs are around, security, safety. Those needs are core needs, human needs. And one of the other things, and I apologise, but I did grow up in the western suburbs of Footscray, in Melbourne. Now that I live in Sydney, you know what? No one wakes up in the morning wanting to be a shit parent. People wake up with love, and stuff happens. And I don't want anyone to be guilty. I wake up every day trying to be the best parent I am. I probably am not some days, but I'm trying. And I just hope parents take it easier on themselves around how they're supporting the children that they love.
Yeah, I
I would-
agree.
yeah,
We need to give ourselves a break and realize just
yeah.
how much we're doing. I'm just mindful of time because we're just on our 9 o'clock, but we do have some
Oh, sorry.
questions.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to go question time, and I'm going to stop sharing our slides just
Yeah.
so we can get to some questions quickly, if that's okay. So our first question we have is from one of the mums. Sometimes when those needs happen for one of my 3 kids, I'm in burnt out overload mode. Totally get that. For me to cope, I might need, for example, to listen to the radio in the car or just ignore the questions as I can't cope at all. And I feel so guilty as I see they want connection, but I just can't.
Um,
I relate to that feeling so much.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we're saying, that 30 for me. The thing I was talking about, I had postnatal depression, anxiety. For me, back then at the beginning of the diagnosis journey, but even on the hard days when my son's having meltdowns and my daughter just can't regulate, whatever the reason, just knowing that I'm doing the best I can, and good enough parent is that parent that's doing it as when we can do it, that our intention is to have a secure attachment. As you said, Mel, we're not waking up thinking I'm going to be a crap parent. We're waking up thinking, how can today be the best day we're having together? And sometimes it is removing ourselves for a little while. And I put my earbuds in and listen to podcasts, sometimes, or I turn the song up on the radio just to change the energy that's going on. Or I say to my kids, right, we're all going to dance right now because I just need to get the emotion moving through my body. Emotion has to move, it has to come out. And whether that's through crying, whether that's through movement, whether that's through, even going once a month and giving yourself a massage or something, to recognize that we're human and we need to look after that part of ourselves too. We have a few questions, so I don't know if you want to add to that, Milo, or go. Yep.
No, can I just add to that? Sit in the car and listen to the radio. Go for a drive if you can. If someone's at home with the kids, go for a drive. It is part of that time out for the parent. It is part of the self-care for the parent. And the only thing that I would say is that in going back, whether there was a rupture or not, or whether it was just, they talk about in Circle of Security shark music. So something that triggers something in us. And it's really funny because, funny and not for our kids, but something might trigger in us and we're playing, the soundtrack to, Friday the 13th in our heads, and we go to our kids being upset, and when they sort of turn around and they look at you, it's like, what? Because they've got the soundtrack of some Marvel movie. They're having fun. They're not even realize that they've activated our shark music. So we need to take care of ourselves, but just address the situation or address the concern, or that concept of the repair is going to do some, because again, what it's saying is, you're responding to me, maybe not when I wanted you to, but you're responding to me. So again, that's validating our children. That's showing them that they're worthy, that they're important, not that we've ignored them. And that's, I think, the key. I hope that's helped. And parenting programs, like, this is an hour for us to touch on secure attachment. Circle of Security is an 8-week program. The emotion coaching ones are, 1, 2, 3 Magic's 3 weeks, but
and we're going to share. I'll share a slide with all of that information on it in a minute. I just want to get to one more question. I know there's been quite a few questions, I think even in the Facebook as well, but so the question is, how do I grow a secure bond and attachment with our child when they always want to be the one in control? Like, the child always wants to be calling the shots. So it's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you know, our children actually want us to be, yeah, again, the research is saying that our children want us, and we are the adult, they want us to be in control. They are taking control, and again, I'm not making judgment on anyone here, but the research is saying that a child will look to take control of a situation when they feel that the parent is not in control, believe it or not. So that concept of always being bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind is really, really important. Wherever possible, following their need, but wherever necessary, taking charge. So this is not about letting a child just rule the roost. You know, just as a child has needs, a parent has needs, there may be a sibling has needs. If we think about rules, when they go to school, there's rules, or there's rules, red lights, and you know, paying for things when we go into shops. So yeah, our children know this, and so I think that again, a parenting course, you know, without knowing the specifics, of course, of what they might be referring to, or what's going on, you know, that might be something to consider. I think that there's
we talked about the different attachment styles, and you know, different parents have different attachment styles, and there are going to be times when our child's going to pull and push against us. And you know, it's about that being bigger, stronger, kinder, wise, you know. And I guess when you think about our child wanting to be the lead, it's a strength in our child, really, wanting to take charge, wanting to take lead. But it has to be something that we work on in ourselves, so that we can still be that secure base and that safe haven for our child, because there's still a developing brain in there. There's still a child they haven't finished growing till they're in their 20s, you know. And so we need to be the model. We need to be the one. And it might be uncomfortable for us. We, like you talk about, we have our shark music. We have that place where we have our own attachment style stuff. There could even be some trauma or whatever it is. But, you know, growth happens just outside our comfort zone. That's where we grow, when we're uncomfortable. No one likes being uncomfortable. You know, I say to myself all the time, Kylie, you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yep, true.
You want to squirm away from it. You don't want to go there. You don't want to do the hard work. And sometimes it's doing the hard work and going, you know, my child can't be in control right now. They're only 6, or they're only 10, or what, you know, 2, whatever age they are. They're trying to take charge. But it can be seen as a strength in our child.
But yeah, again, I think as parents, we need to understand what being with is, and being present. And being with is really understanding them in that moment, not just, as I said before, spending time with. Because if you're not being, you know, the flip side, let's consider the flip side to not being with the child. If you're not being with the child, then potentially your child is possibly going without. So yeah, that in the moment that an interaction requires is really, really important. And that's saying, as I said before, I'm here because you're worth it. And that means being present.
Yeah, it's beautiful thing to say. Melo, we've run out of time, so I just want to share our... Look, I'm sorry if we didn't get to your questions, but what I will say is Melo and I will answer some things in the Facebook chat, and we'll put some other notes in the Facebook chat as well. We'll share some things in there. So we're really, really sorry if we haven't got to your questions. But I just wanted to share what you could be doing next. So what next could be, just wait a second, I get down to the slide. So where to next? So Melo does facilitate the Circle of Security course, which can be done through Plumtree Children's Services. So I know you're doing one this term already, Melo, that was chock-a-block full.
Yeah.
So yeah, so please, if you are
and look,
interested.
can I just say, if people are interested, because just to get in touch, well, if we haven't got our emails there. If they get in touch with Plumtree, if there's enough people showing some interest, we'll see what we can do.
I'll put
But
the
yeah,
link. I'll put it in the Facebook link, Mello, our contacts, to get
okay,
in touch with us if they want.
awesome.
And of course, there is the Circle of Security International online. They can check out that webpage as well. They've got some little videos, I think, on there as well. And you can look at YouTube. And sorry, my things are coming up. Sorry about that. And then that book, Mello, that wonderful book, Raising a Secure Child. There it is. Mello's got it
Very
in front.
good book. Yeah.
That's the Circle of Security team, isn't it, that put that together?
Yeah, so their original book is a bit more technical. That's a much easier read, and I really like.
Actually, Mel, I'm going to can you hold them up? I'm just going to stop share and just so you can show them again.
Yeah.
Raising a Secure Child. Yep.
Yeah, that one is actually on the slide. And that one goes a bit deeper because I've done there's additional training, and I've done the second part of the training, which they include in this book, which is thinner than the Circle of Security Intervention, which is a bit more technical. But I would recommend Raising a Secure Child. Hoffman, Cooper, and Powell.
And then just lastly on the slide, I'll just share again. We've got another webinar coming up on Thursday, the 27th of August at 8 o'clock, and it's parenting with a growth mindset. You know, growth mindset's a bit of a buzzword at the moment, isn't it, Mello? And I guess, what does it really mean to have a growth mindset? You know, my daughter came home from school last year and she told me that one of her teachers had a great growth mindset, but the other teacher didn't have one at all. So I'd love to share with you what the rest of that conversation was. It was a great conversation we had. But what does it mean to parent with a growth mindset? So on Thursday, the 27th of August, put it in your calendar at 8 p.m. We're going to do another Facebook Live webinar with you.
Kylie, because a growth mindset is the great work of Carol Dweck, but I'll also talk about beyond the growth mindset. There's a new term, and
beautiful, love it.
I'll save it for then. But yeah, I think we talked about perhaps doing this once a month, and yeah, we're happy to. I think we've got a few lined up now, but yeah, so. Parenting with a growth mindset. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. Thanks Kylie again. It's always really nice chatting to you about stuff and sharing information with each other. We haven't really had too many arguments yet, have we?
No, I don't think I've had any. So thank you, Mello, for being on here tonight with me as well and facilitating and hosting together. I've really enjoyed the last two webinars. So again, the emotion coaching webinar and tonight's webinar. So thank you. And I look forward to our growth mindset webinar in a month.
So do I.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye.